Question: what is the first thing you think of when you hear this sound? Do you think of a hero chosen by fate who, after meeting a time-traveling alien beetle, must partner with 3 friends and use his psychic powers to stop the literal personification of evil from destroying his world? Or do you think of a little bitch who's been spamming side B for almost 25 years? Don't lie to me. EarthBound, or as it's called in Japan,
マザー2ギーグの逆襲が
is one of those games that, despite having a successful launch in its home country, completely biffed its debut in the West, resulting in fans from the States recognizing its main character more often from crossover games than its actual title. If you're like me and were still located inside balls back in 1995, you probably didn't even know that Nintendo actually released a console before the legendary GameCube. 3 of them, in fact. I know. But a few hundred years ago, the cave people at the time played on an artifact called the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, the brilliantly named successor to Nintendo's Nintendo Entertainment System. On this console released an absolute gem of a game, one that became indescribably important to the development of the gaming landscape, and achieved the status of a true cult classic. I have no idea what that means, so I googled it, and learned that a cult classic is essentially a piece of media outside of the mainstream that develops a dedicated community, which sounds like it could apply to a lot of games. But regardless, your boy has been maining Ness since Super Smash Bros. Melee, and as someone who's achieved elite status with the character in Ultimate, and who was finally able to play the game on the Switch's NSO last year, I think I've garnered some authority to talk about EarthBound on the internet. And believe me, I have a lot to say. EarthBound is an RPG that makes fun of traditional RPGs, subverting popular tropes to create something unique in an oversaturated genre, just like new YouTube channels making videos about games. The madman behind the project, Shigesato Itoi, intentionally sought to create a new way to portray a story within the video game medium, eventually creating a legacy that influenced countless games that followed. And it was also co-developed by a studio originally called Ape. EarthBound tells a mature and immersive story, focusing primarily on evoking emotion from the player and encouraging interaction with the characters that make up the world. Like when you have to defeat big piles of puke in order to reach Master Barf in the deep darkness. Right out the gate, you wake up in a place called Eagle Land to an explosion caused by a falling meteorite, and decide to go out and explore with a couple of your bros. As you investigate the crash, you meet Buzz the time-traveling beetle, and learn that an alien named Gygus has enveloped the world in hatred, threatening to destroy it 10 years in the future. It's up to you to assemble a team of friends and collect the 8 melodies scattered across various sanctuaries within a soundstone to defeat the threat. Somehow. The story is absolutely bananas. I mean, 30 seconds later, Buzz, this seemingly important character, just gets completely annihilated by a middle-aged mom. But this opening illustrates the game's focus on the player's experience being the main vehicle for storytelling. EarthBound puts all of its attention and care into building each and every interaction across this unique world, incorporating as many ridiculous ideas as possible. And this charm is transmitted directly into your eyeballs, most famously with the incredible writing. You know how sometimes anime characters will say something completely outrageous, just like out of nowhere?
Yes, I am.
Well, this is literally every single character in EarthBound. It's honestly insane just how clever and self-aware the writing is all throughout the game. Some NPCs will tell a joke, some will insult you, some will break the fourth wall, and some will just completely ignore you and move on with their days. It's comical how the developers and localizers continue to shit on these modern AAA clown studios and their lazy, soulless dialogue for over 25 years now. Like, look at these guys, who actually have an absurd explanation for blocking off the next area. Or this sign in 3D that reminds the player to take a break while sneaking in an acronym for poop. There are examples of this, fueling a community passionate about celebrating their favorite individual moments to this day. But for every nonsensical joke line in this game, you have something downright poetic, like the snowman in Magikind, which is able to convey an incredible amount of emotion from just a couple lines of text. I think this contrast and distinction between the writing is what makes EarthBound a truly special game, being able to say so much while often saying so little. EarthBound's creativity extends far past the dialogue and is clearly embodied by every aspect of the game. At one point, you'll be navigating a monkey maze to obtain a yogurt dispenser so you can give trout yogurt to a maid so she lets you sneak into a penthouse, while at another, you'll be fighting an enemy called a Ranboob. The music! Another question. What does a successful soundtrack look like in a video game? Let me break it down for you. It's when you got something like this, but then also something like this. The game goes from cheerful and endearing to straight up ball dick crazy, taking the player through an insane roller coaster flipped upside down, left and right, turned around, of emotions by the time we get to the end. What's so interesting to me is that on paper, this amalgamation of outrageous ideas has no right to work as well as it does. But EarthBound ignored this and worked anyway. You fight abstract art and sentient nooses across a vibrant, colorful world. You erase erasers with an eraser eraser. You dismantle a literal cult and play as a character named Pooh. Now, I don't know if I've mentioned this yet, but EarthBound is an old school, turn-based RPG, meaning you'll be doing a lot of We're not winning any Nobel Prizes for the gameplay mechanics here. Characters level up through experience gained in battle, buffing their stats and learning new PSI abilities, while simultaneously being able to equip weapons and gear that augment their strengths. The real interesting part, however, is the role that each character plays within the party. Ness is an all-around strong character, likely being your main healer and absolutely obliterating cranky ladies and extra cranky ladies with his baseball bat. Paula is your glass cannon, who deals heavy PSI damage but gets one-shot by almost every enemy in the game. Jeff is literally fucking overpowered and completely breaks any semblance of difficulty this game has to offer, while also being a big nerd. He primarily implements consumable weapons and unique inventions to deal dummy damage or provide support. And finally, Pooh, grow up, is just kind of a worse Ness. Combat is as simple as any other turn-based RPG, but that's because I haven't even mentioned This is one of those divisive mechanics, but in my opinion, it really does add some unique spice to the EarthBound combat potato salad. When you take damage, your health decreases gradually, giving you an opportunity to heal, potentially saving yourself from death. This definitely adds a bit more strategy to the gameplay, turning straightforward fights into a sweaty menu fuck when Paula takes some mortal damage. But it sadly doesn't cover one of the game's biggest flaws. There is almost zero logic in this game when it comes to progression. EB implements this reverse Pythagorean theorem level of scaling, where some enemies are complete fodder, while others will send you directly to the Shadow Realm almost randomly. Explain to me why these dumbass records and cups of coffee can one-shot my entire team, but this Courage the Cowardly Dog monstrosity goes down lickety-split. The sheer variety in enemy design is great. You can bash hippies and street signs from Ohio, UFOs and Redditors, but getting my party rinsed by the most preposterous enemies makes me madder than Squidward when SpongeBob is doing literally anything. And this brings us to what I like to call the horse shit. Each character has a total of 14 inventory slots, but some evil man made the acorn-brained decision to leave out any distinction between the item types. So these 14 slots are shared between equipment, consumables, and even the goddamn key items. At least we have the Escargot Express, right? Yeah, nice try, idiot. I have to locate a phone, mash A through 1,000 text boxes, go outside, wait for a delivery man, and individually select the items I want to store one by one. But I can only do this for 3 items at a time? And the storage limit is only 34 items? Like, what? Alright, let's speedrun the rest of these. Menuing in general is very unintuitive. You can only buy one item at a time from the stores. When you die, the rest of the party stays dead, and you can only revive them one at a time. But this doesn't replenish your PP, so you have to do that separately. The fast travel mechanic sucks for 90% of the game. Status conditions like diamondization are stupid. Bottom line, there's a level of clunkiness that comes naturally with a SNES era game. But doing a little cost-benefit analysis here, yeah, still a fucking great game. Next topic, EarthBound Finale and Epilogue. After collecting the 8 melodies and conquering Ness's, internal evil, the gang transports their souls into robots so they can confront the final boss in the Cave of the Past. This entire sequence is insanely cool to me. Gygus was so full of rage that his mind was completely shattered, forcing the gang to fight an entity that they could not even comprehend. They realize that he's too powerful and that they won't be able to defeat him by themselves, so Paula begins to pray, connecting the emotions of each character you met throughout your journey, including the player themselves, to launch one final attack. For a game that, on the surface, was so lighthearted and goofy, this ending is incredibly poetic and meaningful. And after all of this, the epilogue is refreshingly simple, with Ness's final mission being to bring Paula back home to Tucson, giving you the chance to re-explore the world and chat with all of the characters you've met one final time. EarthBound is a game where 100% isn't clearly defined. It's up to each player to decide for themselves what true completion means to them, which goes along with the message of the game pretty well. It's about the player's individual experience versus crossing things off of an arbitrary checklist. And that's totally okay. If you're a quitter, a true 100%er follows the tenets of those who came before them.
I am a man.
So let's talk about some of the aspects of 100% the community generally agrees on. Ding ding! That's correct. First, play through the story at your own pace, talking to as many characters as possible to fully experience the writing's charm. As you progress, you'll notice a few completely irrelevant side quests here and there that will result in some funny dialogue and random items, like the insignificant item in Threed Hospital, or returning the lost contacts to the man in Forsythe's bakery for some socks. You should also purchase the vacant house west of Onit if you want a beautiful view. It'll run you $7,500, but contains one of the many photo spots scattered throughout the game, as well as an absolutely absurd meme if you interact with the drawer. Speaking of photos, you can find the cameraman in a total of 32 unique locations across the game, each of which will be added to an album and displayed during the end credits. Alright, I think it's time to address the elephant in the room here. That's right. We need to talk about the dumbass 1 out of 128 item drops. Some enemies will drop rare and unique items at a rate of 1 out of 128, which by my calculations is about 0.78% of the time. This is less than 1% for all you idiots out there. Only an actual freak beast would waste their valuable time grinding out these unnecessarily rare items. So I went ahead and found 3 of them. Are there 3 more unique pieces of equipment on top of even more drops that count towards a 1 out of 128 run? Yeah, just like I was on top of your mom last night. No more questions. Finally, once you defeat Gygus and save the world, at level 99 of course, you will have a chance to re-explore the world before taking Paula home and finishing the game. I highly recommend you take your time here as well. So many characters that Ness met on his adventure will move on with their lives and have some funny dialogue to share. Like Frank working at the burger shop and taking up wrestling, or Pokey's dad drowning his sorrows at Jackie's Cafe. My favorite interaction is when you speak to the Tenda Chief and get the Shyness book back, returning it to the Onit library for the greatest reward in the game. When you're ready to finish the story, you can take Paula home, or invite her over to your house instead to join you and your mom for dinner. The credits will roll, and you'll get to revisit some highlights from your adventure through the photos taken along the way. EarthBound isn't the most complex game. It doesn't have the most impressive graphics, the most outstanding story, or the most innovative gameplay design. But what it does have is an unmistakable personality. It's equally poetic as it is comical, completely obliterating the frameworks established by its predecessors, becoming something completely unique. It combines a heartwarming adventure, careful writing, an engaging world, and an exceptional ending to create what, in my opinion, is the most important defining trait of a timeless masterpiece. Something that is unquestionably memorable. Although I grew up with Ness as a character, I did not grow up with EarthBound itself. So I can go in completely raw with no nostalgia clouding my opinion that this game is a certified ultimate powered banger. 9.5 out of 10, fix the goddamn inventory. Also, the Mr. Saturns talk like this.